Hospital to please join us on the stage for the session.
इसी में लगी हुई
So, with the permission of Chair, I invite the first speaker, that is Madam Munira, please. Could you please join us? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Today my talk at 5 p.m. is about topography basics. I hope कि मैं थोड़ा सा जो है उसको easy करके बता सकूं, क्योंकि 5 बजे सब थक चुके होंगे, लेकिन still I'll try to wake you up. Thank you. Thank you. So most of us sitting over here, we are all surgeons, and the problem is with surgeons is we make our living by cutting people up, and we love it. So one of them is LASIK. अब LASIK में when not to do is also important. तो जब हम when not to do सीख जाते हैं, तो I think we become a wiser surgeon. So corneal topography is basically a Greek word meaning place, and graphene means to write. So it can be of Earth, Mars, anything. But if it's corneal topography, then it's of cornea, a description of cornea in detail. And tomography, these words are used in place of each other. It's for diagnostic characterization of front and back surface of the cornea, along with pachymetry mapping. So this is tomography. So what are the different types of topographer? There are 3 types. First one is based on the principle of reflection, that is Placido disc. In this, cone reflects miles on cornea, and it measures the curvature of the corneal surface, and from that, height is calculated. It doesn't assess the posterior surface of the cornea. तो जो posterior surface of the cornea नहीं कर रहा, तो जो form frustrated keratoconus है, that comes in the back surface of the cornea, तो वो कैसे पता चलेगा? तो इसकी example मैंने ऐसे दी कि front surface पे आजकल CI के exams हो रहे हैं, तो ये बच्चे हैं front surface पे आपको लगेगा कितने अच्छे बच्चे हैं, सब पढ़ रहे हैं, लेकिन when you see the back surface, they all are on mobile. ठीक है ना जी? तो back surface of the cornea is very important. Why? Because form frustrated keratoconus, normally it appears first on the back surface of the cornea. The other type is OBSCAN that we usually use. It's based on the principle of projection. In this, a standardized grid is projected on the corneal surface, and it's analyzed using the elevation map. So OBSCAN 2 has combined Placido as well as slit scanning, and it measures both the surface of the cornea. The third one, which I will talk in detail, I have taken 8.5 minutes, Aisha, am I right? With the consent of chair and moderator, I have taken 1.5 minute extra. Because topography is a subject, at least it needs 8 to 9 minutes. So Pentacam uses digital rotating sham flux photography principle. जो photography करते हैं उनमें अक्सर जो कैमरे हैं उसमें यही principle use होता है. What it does is that it enhances the depth of focus. ये आपको flower नज़र आ रहा है, अगर इसकी depth बढ़ा दें तो flower कितना बेहतर हो गया और image भी distort नहीं हुई. तो this is basically, मैंने कुछ दिन पहले लिया था आने से, तो मैंने कहा कि ये भी शो कर देते हैं. तो 25,000 points are taken and 25 to 50 images are reconstructed in a 3D image. The color coding map was given by Kleist and other scientists, and in this, as we all know, that warm or steep cornea is shown, high diopters they are shown in this color, normal is normally green, and cooler color is blue, which shows the flat cornea. And this is the pentagam refractive map. हमें ये map for quad map पढ़ना आना चाहिए. इसमें what is important? First, check the name and the date of the eye. For a privacy issue, I have taken out the name. You have to check the name and the date and which eye is this. This is right eye. Okay. Then you study the map. Which type of map is this? And then which type? Is there any abnormality or is it fine? And then check the scale. नॉर्मली हम स्केल जो चेक करते हैं वो एब्सोल्यूट स्केल होता है पूरी दुनिया में, तो उसी को रेफरेंस माना जाता है. तो इट्स बेटर कि आप उसी पे करें. अगर आप उसको चेंज करते हैं तो फिर आपको ज़रूर देखना चाहिए. एंड देन कंपेयर इट विद द अदर आई एंड देन फाइनली एक्सप्लेन एंड काउंसिल द पेशेंट वेरी वेल. इसको हम दो को जूम करके आपको बताते हैं. दिस इज़ द एंटीरियर सैजिटल कर्वेचर मैप. इसमें जी ये स्टीप एक्सिस है, ये नज़र आ रहा है. कोई बताएगा कि इसको क्या कहते हैं जी? बो टाई पैटर्न. तो दिस इज सिमेट्रिकल बो टाई पैटर्न सीन ऑन दिस. और इसमें जो डॉटेड लाइन है दे शो द प्यूपल and these steep colors, these are, as you know, the steep corneas or red, shown with red, and the green one is the flat axis. दूसरा जो मैं बताना चाह रही हूँ वो एलिवेशन मैप है. उसके बाद हम 10 कमांडमेंट्स पे आ जाते हैं. एलिवेशन मैप इज़ एंटीरियर एंड पोस्टीरियर. इसमें आपने क्या क्या चीज़ें देखनी है. नॉर्मली क्लिनिकली इम्पॉर्टेंट सेंट्रल 5 मिलीमीटर जोन इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. जो पूरा लेता है ये आइडियली 8 मिलीमीटर का लेता है. 8 मिलीमीटर का पूरा डायमीटर है और जो सेंट्रल 5 मिलीमीटर है, दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. जो पूरा सरफेस है, दिस सरफेस इज़ लाइक अर्थ सरफेस. तो ये सरफेस आइडियली शुड बी ज़ीरो. लेकिन अगर कोई सरफेस कॉर्निया की सरफेस कहीं ऊपर है या कहीं इससे नीचे है, अगर हम ये ले लेते हैं सरफेस, तो ये सरफेस इससे नीचे है तो ये हो गई माइनस में. ये सरफेस इससे ऊपर है तो ये होगी प्लस में. तो दिस इज शोन इन प्लस एज वेल एज इन माइनस. टेन कमांडमेंट पर जाने से पहले दो चीज़ें बहुत अहम हैं. क्वालिटी स्पेसिफिकेशन. आपने एक टेस्ट किया, वो वैलिड है कि नहीं. अगर तो ये वाइट में आ जाता है तो दिस इज़ वैलिड. अगर ये येलो में आ जाता है या रेड में आ जाता है तो जी रीटेक चाहिए. येलो मीन्स सही टेस्ट नहीं आया, उसको दोबारा कर लें. रेड मीन्स रेड का मतलब कुछ और भी हो सकता है, लेकिन नॉर्मली रीटेक. क्यू वैल्यू. व्हाट इज़ क्यू वैल्यू? क्यू वैल्यू इज़ नॉर्मली द एस्फेरिसिटी ऑफ द कॉर्निया. तो एस्फेरिसिटी क्यू वैल्यू. Ideal Q value is 0.26 minus 0.26. Ideal doesn't exist in the world. तो जो कहाँ से कहाँ तक नॉर्मल कहलाएगी? 0 to -1 is normal. अबव माइनस में अगर 1 से चला जाए तो प्रॉब्लम है, केराटोकोनस हो सकता है. और अगर प्लस में चला जाए मतलब आपका हो सकता है कोई सर्जरी हुई है, लेजिक हुआ है, PRK हुआ है. तो नाउ आई कम टू फेमस 10 कमांडमेंट्स. वो मिले तो मोजेस को थे, लेकिन मैंने उसको आसानी की क्योंकि टोपोग्राफी से लोग घबराते हैं और फिर कुछ घबराते नहीं हैं तो वो कर जाते हैं. तो जब कर जाते हैं तो फिर उसके बाद एक्टेजिया दूसरे लोग भुगतते हैं या दूसरी चीज़ें भुगतते हैं. तो बेहतर है कि उसको ईजी किया जाए. कैसे ईजी किया जाए? इसकी सबसे पहले के मैक्स इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. के मैक्स इसमें आपको यहाँ पे शो कर रहा है. यहाँ पे के मैक्स आपको बता रहा है इट शुड नॉट बी मोर देन 47.2. द सुपीरियर इंफीरियर डिफरेंस ऑन 5 मिलीमीटर सर्कल, अगेन 5 मिलीमीटर सर्कल, इट शुड नॉट बी मोर देन 2.5 एंड द एंगल शुड नॉट बी मोर देन 22 डिग्री. अगर आपका ये बना हुआ है तो उसमें एंगल 22 डिग्री से ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. वैल्यूज़ मोर देन 8 इन द एंटीरियर एलिवेशन एंड मोर देन 18 इन द पोस्टीरियर एलिवेशन मैप, जो मैंने आपको पिछली इसमें भी दिखा दी थी. इसमें 8 and 18 इज़ द कट ऑफ वैल्यू. तो 8 और 18 से अगर ज़्यादा है तो इसका मतलब है कि चांसेस हैं कि ये द पेशेंट इज़ नॉट एन आइडियल कैंडिडेट फॉर लेजिक. दूसरा, अगर एस्टिग्मेटिज्म इफ़ इट्स मोर देन 1 डायप्टर and the difference in axis is more than 15 degree with the subjective refraction. अगर पेशेंट की subjective refraction से 1 diopter का difference है या 15 डिग्री का, आपके कान खड़े हो जाने चाहिए. Thin corneas less than 470 microns, pachymetry map difference between apex and thinnest व्हाट इज दिस इज 470 थिन कॉर्निया, ये यहाँ पे आ जाएगा आपके। और पैकीमेट्री मैप डिफरेंस ये देखें, ये एपेक्स और थिनेस के दरमियान, इफ इट्स मोर देन 10 डोंट बी कॉशियस। एंड इफ वाई कोऑर्डिनेट आपको यहाँ पे नजर आएगा जो थिनेस्ट लोकेशन के साथ ही शो कर रहा है, दिस शोज वर्टिकल डिस्प्लेसमेंट, मतलब कॉर्निया जो है वो वर्टिकली डिस्प्लेस्ड हो रहा है, दैट मीन्स चांसेस ऑफ केराटोकोनस। एंड डिफरेंस बिटवीन लास्ट इज जो 10th है कमांडमेंट हमारी, वो है जी सुपीरियर एंड इन्फीरियर पैकी एट 5 मिलीमीटर, इफ इट्स मोर देन 30 माइक्रॉन्स तो गड़बड़ है। लास्ट में इसमें ये बताना चाहूँगी कि दिस इज बेलन अम्ब्रोजियो, दिस गिव्स अ वेल्थ ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन। अगर 6 मिलीमीटर पे इफ इट्स ड्रॉपिंग बिफोर दैट गड़बड़ है। इफ एवरेज पैकीमेट्री प्रोग्रेशन मोर देन 1.2 देयर आर चांसेस ऑफ केराटोकोनस। अगर ये वाइट में ज़बरदस्त, अगर ये येलो में है गड़बड़, अगर ये रेड में वेरी मच चांसेस। मैं बहुत निटी-ग्रिटी इसमें नहीं गई हूँ, लेकिन मेन चीज़ मैंने बता दी। ये मेरा एंड था। एक एग्जाम्पल हम पूछ लेते हैं, ये देख के कोई बता सकता है कि विच टाइप ऑफ शुड वी गो फॉर लेजिक इन दिस पेशेंट और नॉट। ये देखें, एक ये क्राइटेरियन आ गया, ये आ गया, ये आ गया, स्टीप कॉर्निया बहुत सारा है, तो क्या कहते हैं भाई, जाना चाहिए नहीं जाना चाहिए? नहीं जाना चाहिए जी, जवाब दुरुस्त है, इलेक्ट्रा आपका हुआ। दूसरा, ये पेशेंट, ये लास्ट पेशेंट है, इसमें सारे क्राइटेरिया नॉर्मल है। ही वॉज माई कज़न, आई ऑपरेटेड ऑन हिम फॉर लेजिक। And this is the last of PMD, classical crab claw appearance. As you can see, this was the crab claw appearance, and this is the bell-shaped curve in pachymetry. So this was in Urmara. और बस कहना ये है कि आपको लर्न करते रहना है, और स्टिल चेंजेस आती रहेंगी। तू रह न विरद शौक़ है, मंजिल न कर कबूल, लैला भी हम नशी हो तो महमिल न कर कबूल। ये अल्लामा इकबाल की थी, टीपू सुल्तान की वसीयत। थैंक यू जी।
Thank you so much, Professor Munira. Our next speaker is Mr. Dr. Kishore Pradhan. He will come, please, will talk on excimer laser uses in ophthalmology.
Thank you once again for having me in the platform. I've given many of the slides already in the past. My talk today now, this is basically a very, very basic presentation for people who are thinking of starting refractive surgery, not for surgeons who know a lot of things. Mainly, I've been asked to focus on newer surgeons or surgeons who are just getting wrong ideas from different companies, or like you're confused and things like that. So again, this slide is something which I've played in the past. What is the world thinking of? Femtosecond laser, everybody's like, wow, wow, wow. Femtosecond laser, like, you know, everybody's so happy. They're talking about femto all the time. Does it really, is it really true? No, it is not. So to bring everybody back to senses, excimer laser is still in this world and is not ready to leave. Will the femto replace the excimer? No, I'll show you a lot of things today. I played this slide yesterday, but with not a lot of things to show you. Is the corneal biomechanics better with the femtosecond lenticular extractions? Not there yet. There have been proof now. A lot of people are getting a lot of ectasia with SMILE and lenticular extraction. PRK still happens to be the strongest procedure now. And LASIK and SMILE or lenticular extractions, they have similar biomechanics. Immediately after surgery, yes, LASIK, the biomechanics they're weaker. But after a while, when the flap is attached and the scarring has taken place, the biomechanics is the same. The femtosecond will still not be able to replace the microkeratome, because we know that femtosecond laser cannot pass through scarred cornea, scarred tissue. Is the quality of vision better with the femtosecond laser? No, it is not. But there was a presentation in the afternoon that I showed, if anybody had attended. Femtosecond laser is getting geared up to replace excimer laser by 2026. All the companies are on that line. But right now, no. So what do we want? We want great results, we want strong corneas, we want our patients to have the best of everything. Less dry eye, smoother corneas. Over time, yes, lenticules do prove a lot of things, saying hypothetically the corneas are stronger, there's less dry and everything, but there's so much more to happen before we can actually with confidence say that femtosecond laser will replace excimer. Again, I'm saying the earliest would be 2026. So we want more customized treatments. So every eye is different. So your right eye is different to your left eye. So your intraocular lenses, when you're doing cataract surgery, now we want customized intraocular cataract surgery. Like in the cataract surgeries, you want toric trifocus, those kind of things. Similarly, with your corneas, you want things like topo-guided treatments, you want aberration-free treatment, you want all those things, which is not being able to be delivered by femtosecond lasers yet. You can treat lower order aberrations, like some of the people don't even understand the lower order aberration, high order aberrations. But right now, again, as I've said, the residents have become smarter, ophthalmologists have become smarter. So lower order aberrations, basically, they are myopia, hyperopia, and astigmatism. With the femtosecond laser, we have not been able to do even the hyperopic treatments. Forget the customized treatments. Still a long way to go. So when you come into the refractive, like when you come into the excimer laser, usually we think is always the cosmetic side of things, the cosmetic side, excimer laser, chashma hataao, get rid of glasses. But then there's also a therapeutic side on that. PTK for therapeutic keratectomy, transepithelial PTK, PRK, transepithelial PRK, LASIK. It's like laser vision correction or aberration-free or wavefront-guided treatments, and also your corneal grafts. So they can be again divided into therapeutic as well as the refractive side, the cosmetic side. I wouldn't call refractive surgery as cosmetic because, let me give you an example. A person who is wearing -6, let me give you an example. A person who is wearing -6, if you remove his glass and he goes to somebody else's house and he's sleeping there, and at night if he has to go to the toilet, that person will not be able to go to the toilet unless he wears his glasses. So it is as good as a man who does not have his leg. So they are like crutches. So the glasses and crutches are the same. So right now, if you think refractive surgery is cosmetic, it is not. They are basically like crutches. So most of the people don't want to wear glasses. Like nobody wants crutches, something like that. So PTK, again, we can use them in corneal scars, and also depends on how deep it is. You cannot do PTK in all the corneas, mainly for corneal scars. So these, again, when I talk about PTK or when I talk about any laser, it is when I always like to talk with examples. Like the example is, for example, a person has an oven to make bread. So some people will make only bread. But there'll be people who make bread, they'll make cakes, they'll make so many things. You can make the best use out of your excimer laser. So what I'm talking about is what are the things that I do. Probably you might be doing even more, 10 times more than what I'm doing. So it's just, as I said, this is only for people to show that what are the things that you can actually do. So you can do PTK even for your keratoconic patients and also treat some amount of higher order aberrations and do cross-linking. So even you can use that for recurrent erosion syndromes or anterior basement dystrophy or post-trauma or post-surgery patients where these patients keep having these recurrent erosions. Or you can do PTK even for your decentered lenticules or post-Marseille or post-Smile or post-Clear or post-Silk. You can use PTK or transepithelial PRK, something like that. Post-RK patients, you can do that. So most of the time, my PTK or PTK is for patients like these. This is a patient with a corneal scar. She was a pilot. She was training in the Philippines when she got herpetic keratitis. And this is her eye the left eye. And her vision was best corrected 2200, and it was a disaster for her. So when she came to me in Kathmandu, this is what we did after the first sitting. That was the scar, reduced to that with PDK, and then on the second sitting, this is what she had. So we couldn't go very, very deep, but the patient had 20/20 vision after the second sitting. So this is, you can use PDK, or you can even do smart transepithelial PRK to remove these scars. But the refractive errors are so unreliable with these patients. I usually like to do PTK in sittings, not in one sitting. I'll tell the patient that you can do it 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times, even many times. So this is the visual quality of the patient before surgery, and then this is the quality of the vision after surgery. So you can see the point spread functions come down, the quality of the vision has improved, the high order aberrations have come down, patient's much, much happier. And similarly, this is another patient whose vision with so much of point spread, the scatter was so much, and this is the vision after that. So this is one of my best patients over here. So this scan, if you look at it, had been converted to this after many sittings of PDK. So this is the same patient. If you really look at it, the scan over there, pre-op and post-op. So amazing results. So even with the refractive treatments, you can do PRK. As I said, PRK is still, okay. You can do a lot of the eczema treatments. You can do PRK, you can do LASIK, and many of the customized treatments, which a femtosecond laser cannot do. So if you're thinking, again, the femtosecond laser is the treatment, it is not. So it is basically the eczema laser, which is here to stay, unless femtosecond laser really gears up to do many things over here. So even for retreatments, I usually like to do smart transepithelial PRK. And even for corneal grafts, I think I've seen patients with lost flaps, like after PK or after DALC surgery. I've seen surgeons, great surgeons, do surgery, and then we've seen the flaps are lost the next day. And I think the best treatments is an aberration-free treatment on post-grafts with eczema laser. I know lenticule surgery. I've seen people doing SMILE on post-graft surgery, and the graft has failed after a month or something like that because of the suction and all that. Thank you so much. This was 7 minutes. I think I made it in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kishore Pradhan. And now I would like to invite Dr. Mushtaq Khattak for his talk, please. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My presentation is on current concept in refractive laser surgery. Modern refractive surgery consists of laser vision correction and lens-based refractive surgery. I'm going quickly due to shortage of time. Laser vision correction, if we look at the laser vision correction, then we have a 2-prong. One is corneal ablative procedure, and the second one is small incision lenticule extraction. Corneal ablative procedure, we have PRK, LASIK, and customized ablation. PRK, you all know, and most of you are doing as well. And this is a classical ablation. Remove the epithelium, sometimes trans-PRK. And you all know about the PRK complication as well. Longer recovery, discomfort, dry eyes. And if we look at the another procedure of LASIK, which is also the same like a PRK, but we make a flap, elevate the flap, and then apply excimer laser, same like a PRK. And 2 type of LASIK, microkeratomes and femtosecond. Both are in practice, but nowadays femtosecond has taken the place. LASIK has evolved from blade-assisted to laser-assisted surgery. The continued improvement in LASIK technology have maintained high patient satisfaction. Customized corneal ablation, if you look in customized, 90% of patients usually not need any customized treatment. Only 10% people need customized treatment. And customized treatment is wavefront optimized ablation, wavefront guided ablation, topography guided ablation, aspheric ablation, ray tracing based ablation. If you look at this this chart, this is the decision making about the patient, whether you want the patient to do a customized treatment or you go for simply the flap or flap test surgery. So this is what the algorithm shows, that the topo guided or wavefront guided treatment. Current concept about the customized ablation is customized corneal ablation aim to address the high order aberration in addition to correcting the simple spherical or cylindrical error of the eye in order to improve the visual quality of the patient. For customized ablation, nowadays the Contura vision. The Contura vision is basically all those patients who have high order aberration, post-LASIK ectasia, decenter ablation, small optical zone, post-radial keratotomy, and all these patients who you want to do a laser, then the customized treatment gave a very best result. ये FDA study मैं ये बताने जा रहा हूँ कि देखें FDA study about the Contura vision. Topography guided treatment on primary eyes, 212 subjects, 249 eyes were enrolled, 9 sites in the US. Myopia up to 9 diopter and astigmatism up to 3 diopter were included. So you will amazed to know that 29.6% eye gain, 1 or more line of post-operative uncorrected visual acuity at 3 months compared to pre-op. At 12 months, it is 30.9%. 89.9% eye post-op best corrected visual acuity was equivalent or better than pre-op BCVA. 40% gain 1 or more than 1 line in post-operative BCVA compared to pre-op BCVA. So now I'm going quickly to lenticule extraction procedure. We have this 4 platform in the market. Vasomex, you all know, which do smile procedure, and Vasomex have 2 machines. One is 500 and one is 800. And another one is Johnson & Johnson Elita machine, Schwand Atos, which doing smart sight, Zimmer, which are doing clear vision. I'm going to compare the machine specification. This is what the source of laser means. The wavelength which is used in the laser is almost same in all the platform. You look into it, even in the Vasomex 500 and 800. Laser pulse repetition rate is 10 megahertz in Johnson & Johnson, 500 in Vasomex 500, and 2 megahertz in Vasomex 800. And if you look at the cut time, it is 16 seconds in Johnson & Johnson Elita, while 30 seconds in Vasomex, and Vasomex 800, 10 seconds or less than 10 seconds. And in Femto Zimmer, it is 30 seconds, while in Schwand Atos, it is about 30 to 40 seconds. They make a lenticule in this time. So the patient interface, this is curved in Vasomex and in the TOS, while other have a flat. While cyclotarjan, it's present in all the machine except in 500 Vasomex, and inbuilt centration is present in all. So this is what the energy source is. The total dose of energy, you can calculate the formula, which is shown here. I'm going quickly to Vasomex 800. Sorry, we have Smile Pro procedure. This is Vasomex 800, and you can see how the Vasomex 800 is playing. I'm using this machine. The lenticule formation time is only 9 seconds. And the energy which is used for this lenticule formation is almost 500 to 600 total dose, depending on your spot and track distance. So highly versatile, can correct up to 14, 6 diopter astigmatism, hyperopia probably started now, and central align and spot size, track distance customizable. Eye tracking now available in 800. You can see this is like a robotic machine. You can do the cyclotarjan correction. Auto correction is also available. With the J-stick, you can correct by marking the cornea. Now, at the moment, I am doing marking. Auto centration is also available. There is, this is how the track distance center is marked, and very auto centration is available in Vasomex 800. So these are my statistics with the Vasomex 800. We have done up till now 38 eyes. As a conclusion, the evolution from traditional refractive surgery to advanced technologies like Smile and now Smile Pro reflect the continuous quest for safer, more precise, and individualized vision correction method. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mushtaq Khattak. Now I invite Dr. Sharif Asmani Saab. Please come and discuss your topic on LASIK algorithms.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'll be very short. And this presentation is particularly for those my colleagues जो अभी एंटर हो रहे हैं इन दी रिफ्रैक्टिव सर्जरी, और जिनको नहीं समझ में आ रहा, जो नए नए नाम हम सुनते हैं, जैसे अभी भी जो चीज़ें में पढ़ाई गई, जो थिंग्स दैट वर प्रेजेंटेड हियर, मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स आई कुडंट अंडरस्टैंड. सो इसी तरह जो न्यू एंट्रेंट हैं उनको भी नहीं समझ में आता कि व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट वेव फ्रंट ऑप्टिमाइज, वी टॉक अबाउट मुन्नेलिन फार्मूला, वी टॉक अबाउट कस्टम क्यू, तो उनको नहीं समझ में आता कि यार ये है क्या. तो आई थिंक योर बेसिक्स शुड बी वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग व्हेन समबडी सेज कि ही इज डूइंग वेव फ्रंट ऑप्टिमाइज. तो वेव फ्रंट ऑप्टिमाइज क्या है? बिल्कुल करवाई है नोमान, प्रेजेंटेशन कॉपी करवाई है आपने? हाँ हमारी बिल्कुल करवाई, देख लें, बिल्कुल करवाई. तो दिस प्रेजेंटेशन इज मेंट के ये जो डिफरेंट चीज़ें हम बात करते हैं, और अभी not recently, but 4-5 साल 10 साल से ये भी कंटूरा की हम बात करते हैं, तो everybody started asking कि कंटूरा, what is कंटूरा? तो कंटूरा के मैंने कहा कि very simply, I just want to put it here so that the new entrant and those who doesn't have a very clear concept, उनको concept clear हो जाए. So when the examination started, we were doing with the Mundalin formula. So yes, so what was the Mundalin formula? Yeah, these are the 5. अरे भाई ये कैरेक्टर बोनस तो लगा दी तुमने. हेलो, दूसरी लगे. एल्गोरिथम्स. साजिश है ये. वरना कल की तरह मुझे डॉक्टर मजहरी एंड मजहर इसाक की तरह वर्बल बात करनी होगी सारी.
आपके पास है फ्लैश ड्राइव में
एल्गोरिथम्स? नुमान आपको है वो?
आप आके देख लो, इसमें लिस्ट में अगर है तो ढूंढ लो. नमान आप आ जाए ऊपर, लिस्ट में देख लें आके, अगर आप इफ यू कैन फाइंड इट आउट. मीन डॉक्टर हाशमी, मीन टाइम इफ यू वांट वी कैन कॉल द अदर. आप करना चाह रहे हैं अभी?
नहीं, जैसे आप कहें.
नहीं, मेरा अगर
आप नेक्स्ट बुला लें और हम उसके वो करें. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल कर लें.
दैट्स गुड, थैंक यू. Call the next, please.
So I'll be calling Dr. Amir Israr now for his presentation on difficult cases, refractive surgery difficult cases.
ये मज़र स्क्वायर ने कोई साजिश की आपके खिलाफ, मज़री एंड मज़र इसाक. हाशमी, मैं क्या आपके खिलाफ कोई दोनों मज़रों ने साजिश की है?
So we were very nice talks about like how to select patients while knowing about like how to do a tomography or reading a tomography, and then from Dr. Manay Shakir and Kishore, and then an excellent presentation about Smile Pro. I'm just going to talk about what happens when the nightmare comes alive, like what happens like when we start seeing problems, because until unless we are really familiar how to deal with them, it might be like very difficult to get over with the unknown, fear of unknown. It's about one of a patient who actually had LASIK done quite some time back, and while she was opening her car door after shopping, something struck in her eye, and following to that, she started developing irritable eyes. She went to the she came to Pakistan actually and went to the optometrist, and this thing was noted. She was referred to us for further management. On slit lamp examination, what we found was an inward turned flap. This is something like 7 years down the line after refractive surgery. So a few more images, we can see the flap intern. Here we could also see a line of epithelial ingrowth and inflammation of keratitis being present. So what we did was lifted the flap, washed it, and placed it back. And it's a simple thing. Once you're experienced in lifting a flap, just take care that when you're lifting up the flap, then wash it properly so that epithelial ingrowth can become a problem later on. This is another patient who actually had a burning sensation, sticky eyes. This is a post-LASIK patient, femto LASIK patient, who actually presented to us, has been treated with quite a number of medicines and things, and when we saw it in a slit lamp, they were like small tiny deposits of adenoviral keratitis. It's not visible in here. It's just when we did a pentacam, corneal densitometry, we could see all those things. Now, they are treated as normal adenoviral keratitis spots, And when treatment applied, these disappear quite quickly. But one has to be on guard, because if these things are left for longer, they can become permanent or even get more aggressive, and life can be quite disturbing. Especially driving becomes a little more irritable. Another patient who presented to us 6 months down the line post PRK, complaining of blurring and halos, and on eye examination we could see a haze in the cornea developing. Pentacam corneal images shows a specific centerized corneal haze. Steroids and cyclosporins we prescribed, and following to the treatment, it disappeared, but it took something around like 2.5 months for this thing to get settled to this stage. But as soon as we stopped, it started repairing again, and then we had to restart the treatment, and we had to continue it on for almost 4 months' time. And the 28-year-old female who presented 2 days, this is for the beginners, but I think the experienced surgeons have seen it quite normally in the clinics, and they are very well aware of it. And when such a thing comes in, it is treatment to be started as early as possible. This is diffuse lamellary keratitis, and initially it can be started as steroids, but if it is coming into the center area, or like you see scarring coming up, it's better to lift the flap and wash it. Same treatment was given. Actually, in this case, we were very lucky to get away by only prescribing steroids for a longer time, and things settled in very well without having any effect on to the visual outcome. Another interesting thing is, like, we should always be on a watch out for a raised intraocular pressure, because prescribing steroids, we do find steroid responders, and they can like present within 24 hours or a couple of days even. So one has to differentiate, especially whether it is because of a raised intraocular pressure or a diffuse lamellar keratitis. This is like very important, because one would require steroids, and the other one, if we prescribe steroids, it might make a mess out of it. So thank you so much. Thank you for the time.
Ready? नहीं उनका भी आया नहीं है, अब मुनीरा को बुलाओ.
Thank you so much, Dr. Israr. Now I'll request Dr. Munira again for her next talk, please. Thank you.
If there are any questions from the presenters, please keep these in your mind or write down, and we will discuss at the end of the session.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम अगेन. सबको चाय की तलब हो रही है शफीक साहब, शायद लगता है. खैर, ICL पे I won't take more than 6.5 minutes. Okay. So implantable Collamer lenses, my experience and procedure tips. So what's the purpose of this study? This presentation. For low and moderate myopes, there are many choices. Like, we have been studying and listening to all these talks like PRK, LASIK, and then femto-LASIK, SMILE, and whatnot. But what about high myopes? So for high myopes who are in a fix, what to do? So for them, one of the option, a very good option, is posterior chamber PIOL, and in which we place the ICL in between the iris and the crystalline lens. So the purpose is to share my experience of ICL with outcomes regarding effectiveness and quality of vision, and to give some procedure tips too. And I think I will learn some few tips from others as well who have an experience. So ICL is a rectangular one-piece plate haptic design that is planar concave, and it is made up of a biocompatible material called Collamer, which is a mix of collagen and polymer, which makes it lighter and hydrophilic. So this is the aquapore that is in the middle, and it has been there for many years now. Before that, they didn't have a central hole, and it creates better aqueous circulation. What are the indications? the Vision ISIL is indicated for adults between 21 to 45 years of age to correct or reduce myopia ranging from -3 to -18 diopters, and with the anterior chamber depth should be 3 millimeter or more. The anterior chamber angle on gonioscopy should be good, open, and there should be appropriate endothelial cell density as well, and the refractive history should be stable in 1 year, that is not more than 0.5 diopters. This is the preoperative evaluation form that is given to us by the company, and we have to take the best corrected visual acuity, wide to wide distance. How is it calculated? By the caliper, by the pentacam, as well as by the IOL master. Slit lamp by microscopy should be done, IOP should be measured, cornea K values are measured, anterior chamber depth is measured by again IOL master, as well as the pentacam, as you can see over here and over here. And axial length is measured, and fundus details for any active lesion or tear or hole, active hole. The vault size, the ideal vault size is between 250 and 750 microns. मैंने जब स्टार्ट किया तो आशमानी साहब वाज ऑलरेडी डूइंग, उनका मुझसे वास्ट एक्सपीरियंस है इसमें, तो मैंने उनसे भी टिप्स ली कि इफ़ ओवर साइज ना कर जाऊँ या कम भी ना हो, तो इफ़ द ICL is oversized, that means this is higher vault. We can end up in pupillary block glaucoma and crowding of the angle, which may cause later chafing of the iris. If the vault is 125 microns or less, there is risk of anterior subcapsular cataract formation. So sizing of the lens is very important, which is wide to wide, and it should be we should be very meticulous about it. These are a few of my post-op patients, and this is my video. I think ये जी इसकी साउंड आएगी, इसकी साउंड आ सकती है. इसमें we are loading the lens, and after loading the lens, we are making the side port. आ रही है? अच्छा, after making the side port, I am implanting the lens. The anterior haptic, the anterior foot plate, it has a landmark, which is a hole in it, and it should be placed first, and then the later part of the ICL is implanted, and then I will show you in another video. There's a slower video. Because of the time, मैंने इसको थोड़ा सा शॉर्ट किया है. ये लोडिंग के बाद आपने देखा कि आपने कार्ट्रिज में लोड किया. ये दूसरी वीडियो है जिसमें भी यू कैन सी कि this is ICL being implanted, and this is a round landmark which should be on the right side. This is very important. अगर उससे पहले आपने कर दिया तो you can end up in the somersault of the lens. अगर लेंस उल्टा हो गया, कोई स्विमिंग करते हो तो somersault पता है ना कि उल्टा हो जाते हैं, तो इसमें अगर somersault हो गया तो फिर you will have to take it out, तो फिर आपने जी दोबारा करना है. तो इसमें ये सबसे ख्याल रखना है कि जो एंटीरियर फुट प्लेट है, इट शुड बी ऑन द राइट साइड. आप उसमें कार्ट्रिज को थोड़ा सा, अपने इंजेक्टर को थोड़ा सा टिल्ट कर लीजिए, तो इट विल बी ऑन द राइट साइड. So procedure tips: don't make too small incision. In this, incision should be 3 millimeter. You use low viscosity HPMC rather than high viscosity, and have right instruments to hold the lens. Lens को किसी चीज़ से भी नहीं hold कर लेना. Lens holding grasping forceps आता है इसका. Always proceed with the proximal part of the lens. जब proximal आ जाए, उसके बाद आपने distal को inject करना है. Otherwise, you can end up in trouble. And don't ever over aspirate the central part of the lens. उसमें भी आप cataract formation कर सकते हैं. So outcomes in a 3-year study in US evaluating the ICL for high myopic patients, 83.8% reported uncorrected visual acuity of 20/40 or better. In studies comparing ICL versus LASIK, there were less higher order aberrations, better contrast sensitivity, and the quality of life improved because there was less activity limitations. They could do boxing, they could do swimming, everything, and there were fewer symptoms of dry eye. So these are my outcomes and complications. I performed it in 9 eyes. I was discussing Professor Zafrul Islam has been implanting, and मज़र साक हैज़ बीन इम्प्लांटिंग, मज़र साक साहब, हशमानी साहब, तो वो भी आपको इसमें फर्दर इंफॉर्मेशन दे सकते हैं. Bilateral in 4 and unilateral in 1, all were high myopic. 88.8% reported uncorrected visual acuity of 20/40 or better. One patient had high wall tissue, so I took this out and performed RLE. ये मेरी पेशेंट थी जिन्होंने मुझे किया, इसने मुझे अपनी शादी पे भी इनवाइट किया था. ICL surgery can permanently reduce dependence on glasses or contact lenses. Proper sizing is very important. Good white to white and anterior segment OCT should be done. अभी मैं ESCRS लास्ट में गई थी तो उन नई चीज़ जो है अल्ट्रासाउंड माइक्रोस्कोपी फ्रॉम sulcus to sulcus, they are also emphasizing on it, but जो मैनुअल है उसकी भी एक इम्पोर्टेंस है. So vision creates appreciation of life and nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Munira. I hope now, Doctor, your presentation is ready. You please come. आप इसको डिस्क्लोज करें ना, बंदे जो हाईलाइट करें ताकि उनके खिलाफ कोई रपट दर्ज की जाए. वो
I won't take much of your time. बस अभी मुझे याद आ रहा था एक वाक़या. डॉक्टर असलम खान बैठे हुए, मज़र साहब चले गए. 79 में पहली कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी पाकिस्तान में, अपाओ, कराची में, एंड दैट conference was presided over by General Ziaul Haq, at that time the Chief Martial Law Administrator, and he opened that APAO, and उसकी ख्वाहिश ये थी कि वो बार बार चश्मा ऐसे करते थे, तो उन्होंने कहा कि यार कोई ऐसे तुम लोग वो नहीं निकालते कि मुझे चश्मे की ज़रूरत न पड़े. उस वक्त सब there was a laughter, but today that ये हकीकत है कि हम सब कर रहे हैं. रिफ्रैक्टिव सर्जरी एक हकीकत है कि रिफ्रैक्टिव सर्जरी हो रही है, और अब हम दूर का चश्मा भी हटा सकते हैं और नज़दीक का भी हटा सकते हैं. बहरहाल अब शुरू करते हैं कि आई वॉन्ट टेक मच, नो फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट इन प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ दिस. अच्छा, मैं बात कर रहा था कि दीज आर द वेरियस प्रोसीजर्स कि हम कहते हैं मुंडलिन प्रोफाइल, वेव फ्रंट ऑप्टिमाइज, कस्टम क्यू, वेव फ्रंट गाइडेड, टोपो गाइडेड, रे ट्रेसिंग. तो सब हम सोचते हैं इनिशियल फेज में जब when I entered this doing refractive surgery, I also used to think what are we talking about? What is the difference between wavefront optimized and wavefront guided, or topography guided, or custom Q? So I just want to make very clear for you people, those who have just entered this field, or those who are going to make this field as a, ताकि आपको पता चले कि हम बात क्या करते हैं. मुंडरलिन प्रोफाइल जो है, दैट इज़ द फर्स्ट फॉर्मूला जिसमें आपने ये you started doing LASIK, and इसमें ये होता था कि you used to ablate the central 5 millimeter of the cornea, and इसको you used to make it flat. जब आप इसको flat कर देते तो आप ये देखते कि आपका प्रॉब्लम ये होता था कि you have to keep in mind the size of the pupil also, because pupil जब भी थोड़ा dilate होता है in the scotopic condition, तो आपके aberrations होते हैं कि आपका वो glare और halos, और then that is called spherical, positive spherical aberration जितने होते हैं कि patient गाड़ी भी नहीं चला सकता, night myopia हो जाता है. तो आपने क्या किया कि अच्छा दूसरा ये था कि this ran under two assumptions, that pre and post operative corneal surfaces are spherical, and the removed tissue lenticule will have an optical power that correlates to the desired change in refraction, and both assumptions were wrong. The cornea is prolate in shape, cornea is oblate post-operatively, and lenticle that is removed is not directly proportional to the dioptric value. And this small optical zone, 5 millimeter zone, created problem larger pupil में and night time में. Positive spherical aberrations जो हैं उन्होंने glare and halos इतने किए कि patient were not very happy. And it was very harder to ablate periphery in case of hyperopic treatment. So what they introduced? They introduced wavefront optimized, and it was called aberration-free treatment. इनमें क्या किया आपने कि आपने सिर्फ 5 मिलीमीटर की जगह 6.5 millimeter कर दिया, you increase the ablation zone, number one. इससे क्या हुआ कि आपका जो पॉजिटिव स्फेरिकल एब्रेशंस थे वो नहीं हो रहे थे, क्योंकि आपके वो जो दूसरा ये किया आपने उसमें कि आपने ट्रांजिशन जोन ऐड कर दिया. देयर वाज नो कंसेप्ट ऑफ ट्रांजिशन जोन इन मुंडलिनी प्रोफाइल. सो इन दो चीज़ों की वजह से एब्रेशंस कम हो गए. दैट वाज नॉट एब्रेशन फ्री, बट एब्रेशंस कम हो गए. तो उसकी वजह से द पेशेंट फेल्ट वेरी नाइस. Number wavefront optimized and the Mundalini profile and the others, they only deal with the lower order aberrations. They are not considering the higher order aberrations. फिर concept आया Q value का. Q value का मतलब ये है कि the change in the anterior refractive surface of the cornea due to the change in radius of curvature. The radius of curvature apex to periphery में जो change होगा उसकी वजह से, क्योंकि the eye or the cornea is not spheric, it is aspheric. तो इसे the radius of curvature changes from apex to periphery, and that change makes a change in the anterior corneal surface. So that shape of the cornea is that is measured in Q value. So Q value, normal patient की Q value runs from 0.2323 minus 0.30, minus 0.23 to minus 0.30. So इसमें custom ये wavefront optimize में हमने एक population based Q value ली and 0.2 उसमें add कर दिया कि we wanted कि every patient should have a 0.2 Q value. तो ये था wavefront optimize का. Custom Q में we wanted that whatever the Q value that patient has, that should be maintained. So we tried not to change the shape of the cornea. And we did achieve that goal. Then still we were not satisfied, because we were just talking, or we are just taking into account the lower order aberration. What about higher order aberration? So a new technique was introduced, that is wavefront guided treatment. In wavefront guided, we measure the wavefronts that are coming from the pupil, and pupil is not a static in the thing. This is a dynamic. So whenever it changes, the wavefront change. And in a sitting, we cannot measure more than 2,000 wavefronts, and they cannot be reproduced. That is the main difficulty. So it depends upon the size of the pupil, and it depends upon the shape of the pupil, and whenever it changes, it changes. So, and those aberrations that were calculated, that were from whole eye, from the corneal, from the anterior to the posterior surface of the eye, and that were those aberrations were fixed on the cornea. So we are in a case we are producing aberrations on the cornea. So that was the negative point about it. And these were the limitations, that this was limited by the size of the pupil. The dynamic aberrations are impacted on the cornea, and today there are mixed results about this. Then came the Contura. The Contura, we saw that 65% of the patient achieve vision better than 20/20. Number one, there were less night vision problems, and the patient's depth of focus increased. Normal LASIK जो हम करते हैं, जो wavefront optimized या custom Q, प्रॉब्लम ये होता है कि पेशेंट कम्स विद द कंप्लेंट कि डॉक्टर साहब हमें पहले तो हम बड़ा अच्छा पढ़ते थे, अभी इतना अच्छा नहीं पढ़ रहे. इसलिए कि हम लोग वी आर नॉट टेकिंग इनटू कंसिडरेशन अबाउट द डेप्थ ऑफ फोकस, बट कंटूरा विजन में डेप्थ ऑफ फोकस इंक्रीजेज. सो व्हाई दिस हैपेंस? दिस हैपेंस बिकॉज वी आर ट्राइंग नॉट टू चेंज द क्यू वैल्यू एज वी आर डूइंग इन द कस्टम क्यू. We are not inducing the aberration, and we are correcting the aberrations that are already present. So the unique part in this is that it is taking into account the aberrations that are present on the anterior surface of the cornea. And 70 to 80% of the aberrations that are present in the eye, they are present on the anterior surface of the cornea. So we calculate that, we document that the software document the the aberrations on the anterior part of the cornea, it plans and it puts it on the treatment profile. Then the second most important thing, all the treatment, the wavefront optimized, the Mundelein profile, original formula, the custom Q, and the wavefront guided. They have to be treated around the pupil. The pupil is the center, and on the center of the pupil, around the center of the pupil, we are making the treatment. But here, the software takes into account the vertex itself. Vertex means the highest point on the cornea, and it is treating around it. That is the unique thing in Contura vision. Number 3, it also takes into account cyclotorsion compensation that is not present in other treatments. Number 4, it takes into account the correction matrix. Correction matrix means it calculates the number of pulses that are to be used to treat that particular eye or that particular cornea, and it also takes into account the biomechanical changes that will undergo, and also about the epithelial remodeling that will occur. So these all things are taken into account, and then the treatment occurs. And it increases the depth of focus. That is the main part, and the patient who undergoes refractive surgery with Contura platform, Contura platform, is very happy that his depth of focus increases. So who can benefit? 3 or 4 types of patients. Those patients who are complaining of nighttime difficulty driving, that glare and halos क्या आ रहा है और हमें रात को मज़ा नहीं आता चलाने में, number 1. Number 2, those patients who are having difference in refractive and measured cylinder, those who cannot be corrected crisp 6/6, 6/9, 6/6 पर वो जाकर रुक जाते हैं, वो उनको हम ठीक कर सकते हैं, and anyone who has a consistent topography. So these are the differences between this, and the main thing is that this is the only treatment that is that takes into account the cyclotorsional element, number 1, and number 2, we don't have to center it on the pupil. It finds the vertex itself and it treats it around it. So with this, I end my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharif Hashmani. We now move on to our last talk, and it is on the topic of touchless stream light trans PRK. Dr. Aisha Fawad will present the case. But ठीक है.
So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, I will be talking about our real-world experience with touchless trans PRK. So, this will be the sequence of my presentation. We know that in 1970s, it was the first time that excimer laser was ever used. And in 1980s, it was first used on a patient for ophthalmic purpose. In 1995, it got its approval from FDA, and by the time the process was completed, LASIK was already in business, and it took the driving seat, of course. So PRK was automatically pushed back. In 2019, there was introduction of Streamlight PRK, and it was included into the current platform of excimer laser. It was literally a rebirth of PRK because it was touchless, and it obviously was a very attractive option for patients as well as for surgeons because it was quick, it was single step, and it encouraged more flow of surgery. The epithelial defect that was produced had very regular, healthy margins, and the epithelium was exactly tailored according to the optical zone. It was smallest as possible and just as large as it was needed. And of course, it encouraged healthy healing. Pain, however, and the recovery time still remained a question mark. So whenever a patient walks into a refractive surgery clinic, he or she just dreams of, a very quick, painless surgery. Of course, LASIK, and that is the dream of the refractive surgeon as well. But sometimes our hands are tied, and we cannot offer it to every patient who's coming to us. So what are those exceptional cases when we are, we are unable to offer a femto LASIK procedure to a patient? Some of those examples like thin corneas, corneas less than 500 microns. Then there are borderline topographies. For example, here we can see that there is an asymmetric bow tie, although it's within the normal range, but still, it's slightly causing some discomfort for the surgeon. Almost in-phase asymmetry is around 1.3 diopters over here. Then there are patients in whom you'll see all the topography parameters are falling into place. The Paki is good, the elevations are great, topography is perfect, but the bad D value is somehow not within the normal range. And if it's a young patient, so you're careful because it's a very heavyweight parameter, and you don't really want to ignore this bad D value. So what would you do in this patient? Then we come to patients who have borderline biomechanics. For example, patients who are, the TBI value comes out to be more than 0.29, which is usually considered to be, a safe value for LASIK procedure. Then there are patients who are sports enthusiasts, like, the boxers. Patients who are claustrophobic and they just can't get the idea of, they can't tolerate the idea of having something around their eye even for, very little time. So then there are patients, we understand that, if there's, a few holes or something, we always laser them and do a femto LASIK. But sometimes there's extensive degeneration or extensive breaks, and we're not very comfortable to let the patient have all sorts of, problems. So we would want to do something other than femto LASIK. Patients who have family history of keratoconus, patients who have faint corneal opacities due to use of contact lens wear or any kind of trauma in the past, patients who need retreatments. Then economy is another factor, and sometimes, rarely, there might be a patient where we would find the docking process very difficult. So what to do in all these patients? So here came the more modern, more advanced version of PRK, which was trans-epithelial PRK. And we collected all these sort of patients whom we thought were otherwise fit for refractive surgery, but we were not very comfortable doing LASIK, or we thought that LASIK was not a very safe procedure for them. So we collected them over a period of around 6 months, and there were around 40 eyes. We gathered their data, took the usual consent, the detailed examination, topography, tomography, the biomechanics, epithelial mapping. We did all the procedures, and the cutoff limit for these refractive error was around 6 diopters, and we included those with up to 1.5 diopter astigmatism. And we did the detailed counseling about the procedure details, also about the pain and the relatively longer recovery period. So we put all the data, gathered it, and put it into the Excel sheets, and we got the results. And to put all this complicated graph into simple words, we found that around 93% patients achieved around 20/23 vision, uncorrected post-operatively. The duration, follow-up duration was around 6 months. Then none of the patients lost any corrected distance visual acuity. The procedure was found to be accurate in regards that all the patients achieved post-op uncorrected vision within 1 line of their pre-operative corrected distance vision. And we found that, apart from a little overcorrection in the initial period, later on, most of the patients, they became stable. Almost 1.5 day was the average of the pain that they felt, and the epithelial defect was mostly covered in around 3 days. However, we removed the BCL at 4th day, not before that. And patients were asked to fill their questionnaire at the end of 6 months, and 93% of the patients remained highly satisfied and recommended, and they thought that they would recommend the patient to the procedure to other friends and family members as well. So I summarize by saying that trans PRK is is a solution when economy is our concern, when the LASIK is a limitation and we cannot really perform LASIK on a patient. Pain, however, we have to explain to the patient, and of course the recovery time. I just want to conclude that sometimes, going back to the basics really saves the day and is a very simple thing. It just removes all the chaos in your life, and you can go back to basics sometimes. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aisha. If there is any comment from the audience, please. Anyone want to add something? Or any question from the speakers? Please.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question from Dr. Kishore that when you are doing the PTK for corneal scarring, so how much depth of the scar must be treated with PTK, and what is the limit for treating that? I mean, you do multiple sittings in multiple settings, so how much we should go for that? So I need elaboration on that point.
So one thing you have to understand with the corneal OCT is that if you have a scarred cornea, the scarred corneas usually tend to appear thinner than normal, whatever you have. Suppose the cornea is 400 microns, they'll show you about 350. So this is the reason why I don't treat most of my patients in one sitting. So you can always measure it on the OCT and try and go to around 90% of it. I do that most of the time. Sometimes I do it in one sitting, like, I do the 90% of my treatment, and then you wait for it to reepithelize, or you can do an OCT again immediately on the table, and you can go with the treatments of 10 microns each. You can add 10 microns, 10 microns, 10 microns, till you see that the scar is cleared off. So there are patients where I do on the table, like, so I do 90% of it, and then keep adding 10 microns every sitting, or you wait to see some result of refractive error. Sometimes you do a PTK, and then sometimes you might want to do a transepithelial PRK later, sometimes after 4 or 5 months. How much? No, it depends. It depends on the patient's refractive stability, depends on the patient's the dry eye status, depends on if the patient is developing the corneal haze or developing the scar back or something like that. Depends on if the patient gets a reinfection. All those are important. So that patient, we had started on oral acyclovir, topical acyclovir, oral valcyclovir and topical acyclovir. And then even post-operatively, we had given oral valcyclovir for almost 3 months till we saw that there was no recurrence, and then we went for the second. Yes, there might be a recurrence, or you might activate a viral yeah. So you can recur the herpetic infection. Is so important. Excimer lasers can just reactivate the whole thing.
Thank you so much. Well, this has been a wonderful session on refractive surgery. The presenters covered right from the basics to the complex and difficult cases, introducing about all areas of the procedures done for refractive surgery. I'm thankful to all the presenters, Dr. Hashmani, Kishore, Amir, Munira, and Aisha. Thank you so much, and thank you all of you for sitting so patiently and listening to these talks. Goodbye. Session is closed.